All right, all right. Welcome back to another episode of the Masterful Conversations podcast, where we learn about leadership from the men who have served or are currently serving as virtual master in the regular lodge of free and accepted Masons. I am Brother Matthew Wagstaff, a past master of Eureka Lodge number 36 out of Rochester, New York. We're currently serving as our worshipful master is Brother Jermaine Myers. And I'm with
I am past master Mark Alexander out of Sons of Kings Lodge number 123, Brooklyn, New York, where Fitzgerald Boyce II currently serves as worship master.
We both hail from the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the state of New York. We're currently serving as our Grand Master is most worshipful, Darren M. Morton. So today is a special edition day. We don't have a guest today, but today is Thanksgiving in the United States. For those who practice or who celebrate Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving to you all. We certainly hope that you are enjoying your day with however you choose to enjoy your day. But before we get into the disclaimer, just wanted to share a quick ask, things that we may be thankful for in the craft. We talk about masonry, we met a lot of people. So, what are you thankful for today, Mark?
Within the craft, the top thing I'm thankful for is actually the brotherhood. Um, like especially since I moved down to North Carolina, brothers been calling and checking on me or whatever, having conversations about this and that. So I highly value those relationships and friendship that I have gained, especially here in Prince Hall, because we've been having real extensive and personal conversations with brothers that I got real tight with brothers. So that's what I'm really thankful for.
Yeah, I echo the same sentiments around being thankful for the relationships. Um, the men I probably would have never met unless it was for the craft or
Mm-hmm.
the privilege to learn from, and also build with throughout this process. So much love to the brotherhood. Definitely appreciate the fellowship, all the laughing, the joking, but even the kind of the back and forth, debates and those sort of
Yeah,
things. They all help us, become stronger, help me become stronger over the years. So definitely
yeah.
thankful to the brotherhood of the craft.
I just seen a meme that says, within masonry, you don't have any, there's no strangers, there's just friends you never met before.
Mm, mm. That's a that's something to always remember for real.
Hmm.
Seriously. Well, great. All right. So before we get into our conversation today, let's do our quick disclaimer.
The views and opinions of this show are our own, and they're not express the views and opinions of our prospective Grand Lodges or Grand Lodges. The purpose of this show is for educational entertainment purposes only. If you have any questions, please consult the proper office in your prospective jurisdiction.
All right. So we have a couple of topics we're going to talk about today. We don't have a guest to interview, but me and Mark are always we're past masters forever, and so we could always have a show with just us two
Hmm.
talking about our leadership journey and other topics related to leadership. And so we're gonna first start off. Mark is gonna start with a conversation around the four levels of leadership in the craft or in the lodge.
Hey, brothers. As you know, this is a podcast is always conversational. So we're gonna go have this little conversation about four levels of leadership within the lodge. Right? Um, every member of a lodge, every full member of a lodge is a leader, and then I'm gonna break down and explain that with this. The four levels, as I see it, of leadership in the lodge is one, the master mason; two, the officer; three, the actual worship master; and four, the past master. Right? So as soon as you come in, you're an apprentice and you learn and things like that, and you get past to the degree of fellow craft and you continue to learn your craft, and then you get raised to the sublime degree of master mason. At that point, when you raise the sublime degree of a master mason, you're really somewhat on your own. That's when your journey really begins. That's when you have all your full study and you don't know everything, but you're qualified to move around within the craft and travel and things like that. You receive all your rights and privileges, and you get a chance to really know everything you need to know as a man. And as the title suggests, as we talked about here on the show before, Master Mason as a master, the master part is the teacher, right? So you're supposed to be able to be a teacher. So as a teacher, you automatically a leader, right? So you
Mm.
should be able to teach anybody that's below you at least the basics of the craft, right? As a master mason. And I would say, yeah, also when you go through your different um, lectures and things like that, and especially the election installation service. So when you definitely, it's coming up in December, brothers, make sure you're paying attention to the installation ceremony and the words that is given.
Mm-hmm.
On this particular part, we're talking about, when there's a charge given to the brothers of the lodge, the whole lodge, right? And it talks about a few different things here and there. It talks about how trying to think if I got the right things from here, but the master mason, as a master mason, you become a teacher. You're responsible, and to make sure that the lodge goes in the direction to benefit everyone of the lodge itself. All right. You got to act worthy of being that mason as a master mason, because you recommend masonry by the recommend masonry to the world by the rectitude of your conduct.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Mm-hmm.
once you be able to adorn that square and compass and put in the street, then you become the basically the advertisement
Mm-hmm.
for Freemasonry. So you got to always remember that, and that again automatically makes you a leader, right? Uh, Again, you're supposed to make sure your brothers, there's all things within all the rituals and stuff, how you're supposed to check your brothers, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do, everybody's obeying we all obligated to obey the constitution and bylaws and all things like that. And again, that's another ways of leadership. But as a master mason, and I'm just saying as a master mason or a member of the lodge, I would say the key to leadership in that stage is actually being a follower. In order to be a good leader, you have to learn how to be a good follower. So that's the lowest level in which you are following the direction of, your authority within the installation ceremony. Some are here to uh I'll summarize it. Some are here to lead and some are here to follow. Right. So as a master mason, being a good follower, that's how you're showing your leadership ability as a master mason. And then
Mm-hmm.
if you choose to, because you don't ever have to, but if you choose to move on to the next level of leadership, that would be that of a large officer, right? So as a large officer, you take on more responsibilities. You have to be in more places. You have to attend more things. You have to do more things. You have responsibilities within the lodge. You might have responsibilities on committees. You might have responsibilities towards the Grand Lodge. It all depends on the exact spot of um, officer. Now, officer, I'm talking about basically from steward up until senior warden. I'm qualifying that as an
Mm-hmm.
officer, even though, of course, it works for master officer, but the way I'm separating is that. So, in all those steps, of course, if you have learned your proper lesson as a follower, then you also know how to follow the directions given from the worship master, who currently is the leader of all of us within the Masonic Lodge. So that would be the next step on that. You learn that, and here you also get a chance to, at some stages, learn how to delegate,
Mm-hmm.
so that you could push the large agenda on more and get things done to that nature. So I would say the key word for an officer is the example. Be the example for the brothers of the lodge, for everybody else to strive to. Everybody at the master mason should be looking to you as a higher standard to come to that. So that's the key as officer. And then, of course, the typical leader, as we all know of the lodge, is the worshipful master. It culminates basically the leadership process, as I would say, to the top to an extent, right? He's the one that is giving the instructions for the craft. He
Mm-hmm.
guides us through the year and things like that. He is not a dictator, but he does have extreme powers and what can be said and done within meetings and things like that. There's a worship masters, make sure that you know your powers. Check your constitution and your bylaws so you know all your powers and you won't abuse them, right? So at that point, you're taking on other things you get, because even as a worship master, you still have to follow, right? You have to follow the mandates and of the Grand Lodge. So you got that followers that you learn as a master mason, and then as an officer, you've been an example, continue to be that example, and take on all those lessons you learned as a officer to help make you the best master that you could be. And then once you pass the Oriental chair and did your year, 2, 3, 4, hopefully not 10 in the East, right? Then you have become, which will two is only two stages of this will be long, right? The two longest stages you can be is a master mason and a past master, one of the two. So if you never go to an Oriental chair, then your longest stage will be a master mason. And if you, I mean, you're always a master mason, but you understand what I'm saying. If that everybody should understand what I'm saying. And if you're not, if you do go to the altar chair, then you'll pass most likely. If you live, continue to live with the blessings of God, you will be the longest stage will be a past master. And the past master is there to help guide and be that pillar of wisdom for for the brothers, especially for the worship master and the leaders, so they could come to them because they know what it feels to go through those particular things and everything it was to be this and that, even though things may change here and there, but they still have that uh well, wow, it's early in the morning, brother, so my brain fog is
Got that wisdom, that lived
exactly,
experience.
yeah, exactly that experience. Yeah, they do
Yeah.
have that lived experience of being the worship master and being those other positions too. So hopefully they will help guide the lodge in from that perspective, right? So the key to that stage of leadership would be a mentor. That's when you just reflecting, giving your wisdom and things like that, ideas, knowing that nobody has to listen to you, but you can give everything that you know to help guide the lodge into a good spot and ways and all the things you have learned throughout all the years of your craft, right? So that's basically, as I see it, the four several levels of leadership within the lodge, that each one of them has a key. As a master mason, you are following is the key. The officer is be the example. The leader, the worship master is this, actually I didn't mention that he's a servant. He's a servant leader. That's what that
Mm,
should be the key to being a master, being a good servant. And past master, the key is the mentorship. So take that on, brothers. Remember that, and hopefully that'll help you out in your journeys.
nice, nice. Appreciate that, brother. Good way to break it down. Because again, we're all leaders in our own right.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely there's different levels to it as well. You had me thinking. I was just jotting down some notes as you were talking about the levels of leadership, and I was kind of akin to the corporate world. So
Mm-hmm.
my 9 to 5, my usual vocation is in the corporate space, and so I started thinking about like the different levels from the master
Mm-hmm.
mason. And this isn't like we all meet on the level, right?
Yep.
So the fact
Mm-hmm.
that we all meet on the level, let's just get that,
Yeah,
down. Whether
exactly.
you're a past master or master
Yeah,
mason,
we in the Blue Laws, we all master
we
masons.
all master masons on the level,
Exactly.
right? At the end of the
Exactly.
day, all master
Mm-hmm.
masons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at the same time, just to again to round it out for brothers who may or may not be in leadership or in official leadership titles, I think of the master mason that's not in a specific station or place,
Mm-hmm.
like an appointed or elected office, is
Mm-hmm.
almost like that staff level individual contributor role in an organization in a company where the main focus I'm thinking could be or maybe should be, and I say should intentionally, is focusing on developing your craft, developing a skill set so that you can progress. And so spending as much time as possible when you get into the craft, like, to learn the craft, to learn the information, to learn how to apply the tools that were given to you in your life, so that then when you progress to the next level of being an officer, so whether you are appointed or elected, you can sort of serve as in sort of that management level of the organization. And not that you are essentially, having some clear direction, and you're helping the non-elected and appointed officers kind of help navigate and get the work done for the master and for that time period. So if you are a steward, or if you're a master of ceremonies, or if you are a warden or a secretary treasurer, you have at some point developed a skill set before you were in that seat that allows you to help direct and guide and even move things forward. And then when you get to the master seat, you have me thinking about that servant leader space. And also what we've been hearing time and time again about worshipful masters is they got to come with a vision.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yep.
the master to me is sort of that executive level, the C-suite,
Mm-hmm.
if you think about it that way. And so coming with that executive insight, foresight, vision to set the tone for the direction of the lodge. And so you're able to give instruction, give direction to the management level, who are able to then help to support the other brothers, the non-appointed or elected officers, who are quote unquote in the quarries doing the work and developing their skill set so that they can move through. And then you got your past masters, which I almost akin to like the board of directors,
Okay.
where it's almost like they can even though we have our own like the trustees and we have that sort of level, but then
Yeah.
you have like your advisory council that
Yeah.
kind of like
Mm-hmm.
oversees or supports the worshipful master and his cabinet in
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling the mission. They're not in there to actually do the work or take over. Like you shouldn't have all your past masters doing the work. Like this, the master masons who aren't in the offices or the folk or the brothers who are in those stations and places should probably be the ones doing the work. The past masters should not be the ones that's leading the charge and doing all the work. They should be providing
Exactly.
that guidance, that
Mm-hmm.
advice,
Mm-hmm.
that direction. Unfortunately, sometimes it's the number of bodies and the amount of work just don't
Yeah.
they don't
Exactly.
equate.
Exactly.
So it's
I mean,
always a
because
challenge.
master, the past masters could move on to do things in the Grand Lodge because they could be free to do
Mhm.
that, or other organizations and things like that. But
Yeah.
they're always there to help out their lodge as well if they can. But they
Yeah.
shouldn't be the main bulk of that. The main bulk should be the master mason. Definitely.
Yeah. So if the lodge is operating, as a well-oiled machine, as our brothers in the AU like to say, they
Mm-hmm.
got a well-oiled machine out there.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to the Delphi Union. Um, it should be that progression where the low, the past masters have done their time, they put their work in. Now they can not just kick back, but provide that counsel. Me and you both, Mark, we both probably start. I know I'm the secretary of the lodge right now.
Okay.
Ideally, that might be a good place for a past master.
Master, yeah.
That's been said. I don't necessarily
Officially.
always agree with that, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it makes sense to say that. At the
Yeah.
same time, I think a master mason could aspire to go from the floor to being a secretary if they, develop certain skill set and pay attention. So I
Yeah,
don't
and
necessarily
a
think
lot of us have had that experience, and we had brothers on the experience who was a master mason, being a secretary, and then ascended to worship master, and he became a better worship master because he understood that position. Definitely.
exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. Like I was treasurer before I was worshipful master, and so it just,
Hmm.
it all makes sense
Yeah,
in
and I
that
was
regard.
secretary.
Right,
Hmm.
right. So yeah, no, I think the way you broke that down makes total sense, and I hope brothers and just people in general who may be listening right now, there's different levels. No matter where you are, you got your own leadership ability to be a leader wherever you are. So just prepare yourself, kind of build upon those skills, develop a skill set, get good at something,
Yes.
and then show people that you are good at it, and
Hmm.
then help other people get good at it.
Yeah, find what you like in the craft and develop that. I just want to add one more thing, is I know it's on my mind, and this example that comes forth. Getting your master mason is almost like getting your black belt, because that's the beginning, that's the end of your
Mm,
training and beginning of the next level of training, right? So you're
mm,
master mason, you got your black belt, and the next levels will be extra stripes on your black belt to become even stronger.
nice. Yeah. So we all got black belts out here right now. We
Yeah.
got no extra nice.
Now don't go out there fighting, you're gonna get beat up.
Fight with your mental sword, mental sword.
Exactly. Exactly. Don't do that to the wrong person. Make sure you actually develop that.
Right, right, right. Absolutely. Practice makes better every day. Sharpen that
Definitely.
sword.
Hmm.
All right,
Hmm.
cool. So, um, so the next part I'll chat about the four agreements.
Okay.
So the Four Agreements is a book that was written by Don Miguel Ruiz, and I actually learned about this book during the pandemic. So I mean, this book I think has been around for a while,
Yeah, it
but
has.
I learned about it through the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and I did the audio book. So
Okay.
as we're going through kind of lockdown, just listen to audio books almost every day, and just learning that way. But I thought it was really, really interesting. Book, good insights, concise, easy to follow. And so some of those agreements, well, the agreements that are in that book, I think there's a lot of leadership insights that can be gleaned from those things. And so, I really wanted to chat about those four agreements and then just have a little conversation around those leadership connections. And so
Hmm.
I'll read some of them. So the four
Yep.
agreements, the first agreement is And first, before I even jump into that, you know,
Hmm.
we're all making agreements with ourselves. Either we know it or we don't know it. You know, sometimes we just subconsciously or unconsciously making these agreements about what we believe and the type of things, the way in which we think and the way in which we act. And so whether you know it or not, you're making an agreement. And this book calls out four agreements that you want to make with yourself. And so it helps
And
guide the way that you act and think.
if I may ask, I would say that our obligation would also be the agreement we made with God, but ourselves before God. So that's a definitely agreement we
Definitely.
made. Mhm,
Definitely in agreement.
mhm.
All right. So the four agreements. So the first agreement is be impeccable with your word. So it talks about speaking with integrity, saying only what you mean, avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. And so what that means to me in terms of leadership is just that power of the tongue. You know, we study the great light and in the holy book, we talk about the power of life and death is in the tongue. In the beginning was the word. And as a leader, it's important for you to be mindful of the words you say over yourself and over your lodge and over your brothers. And you can kind of get caught up in the emotion. You can get caught up with not really being mindful and intentional about your words, and you say the wrong thing, and that can just have trickle effects all the way down through your whole leadership style, throughout your whole leadership career, as a master mason, as a leader, as you ascend through the various chairs. So you may have said something to somebody 1 year, and that carries with you for 20 years. And so just be mindful of the words you speak. Speak with integrity. Say only what you mean, and avoid using words that are abusive to yourself or the gossip. You know, as a leader, you set the tone, and the way that you speak really indicates who you are. Really, like the words you use about yourself and others really indicate type of person that you are. So just be mindful of the type of words you speak, and make sure, as the book says, you are impeccable with your words. What do you think about that, Mark?
The first thing that came to my mind, particularly, is actually from the ritual. It's what shout out to Damon Jack says, which should be part of the obligation, is
Mm,
speak only what you know to be true.
mm,
And that's definitely being impeccable with your words and carry that out. And no matter where you're going or what you're doing, you know what I mean? Especially
mm,
when, like in this internet age and we have all this misinformation, whatever, things like that. If you got a meme that you ain't really too sure about, don't spread it. You know what I mean? Look it up first, check it out,
yeah.
see if you have any, if it could be true before you spreading it. So that still goes into that same thing, but speak only what you know to be true. Because you don't want to
Yes.
spread that misinformation, and that could be done within the lodge too. You know, it could be something simple like, well, um, I don't know, John is running for worshipful master, and you ain't never heard John is running for worshipful master. Now you starting rumors in the lodge and starting dissension and stuff like that. If it's something that
Mm.
you heard as a rumor. So just be
Right.
careful with that. Yeah, that's
Careful
what
with
I
the
got on
gossip.
that one. Hmm.
Definitely. And so even like the words you say over yourself, the things that you believe or you
Hmm.
think in your to yourself, like be very careful about what you say about yourself. The words you
Definitely.
say, like, man, I feel bad today, or you know, this is really getting on my nerves, or I'm frustrated by this. You know, those words really matter, and they have an impact on you, whether you believe it or not. So, you know,
Yeah,
again, be impeccable with how you speak to others and how you speak to yourself.
definitely.
The second agreement is, and this is probably one of my favorite ones, is,
Mm.
but all I love all of these ones, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. But the second one is very, very near and dear. Is don't
Hmm.
take anything personally.
Hmm.
And so this talks about nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dreams. When you are immune by the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. And this really is super important because I was having a conversation with my daughter around things she may be experiencing, and the way in which she's navigating as an adult. And the reminder is always like, when people that you work with or folks who you interact with nine times out of 10, when they leave your presence, they're not thinking about you anymore. Like they have their own life, their own challenges and things that they're focused on. Like most times it's not about you. Like they have their own
Yes.
things that are going on.
Mm,
So you want to be focused on, uh, or not focus so much on making everything about you. So
definitely.
don't take things personally. Not everything is about you. It's important to know your brothers. It's important to know who you're with so that you can kind of know what triggers them too. So because the way in which I may react to what somebody said or did is more of a reflection of me than it is of them. Because I may be thinking about something, I may already had something on my mind, I may be frustrated or excited about something, and so I may react one way or another. Not because you said it necessarily, but because I was thinking it and feeling it at that moment. You just sort of just are the trigger. Um, but if you're going to lead other people, it's good for you to know what their triggers are because they're going to react based on what you said sometimes because of the way in which they were raised, what they believe to be true, what their sort of their picture of their world is. So, this second agreement around don't take anything personally is very, very interesting because start taking personal attacks as worshipful master. You start thinking,
Yeah.
oh, why are brothers not coming to lodge? It's because of me. They don't like me. Like
Hmm.
they may have their own struggles and challenges, things that are going on have nothing to do with you.
Yeah,
It might have a little
exactly.
bit to do with you, but even if they don't like you, it's something
Hmm.
about them that makes them
Hmm.
not like you, or it may be something about them that makes them like you.
Hmm.
They see something,
Exactly.
so it could go both ways. What do
Well,
you think about
we all know the point within the circle, and you in the you in the middle, and then in the circle around you, right? Now imagine that is all of us is a point within the circle, right? So how can everybody focus on like you when everybody's a point with a whole circle around them? If you think everybody got a point within the circle. So you always got to remember. I mean, I know sometimes I get in my get out your head. That's the number one thing with that, because we all suffer already from it from here and there, whatever. I know, like I don't really like going to like the balls and stuff like that where I'm supposed to eat proper and do the other stuff. Because sometimes I get in my head thinking that somebody's watching me the way I'm chewing and I'm
it?
picking up the chicken with my hand and things like that. And I gotta like banish that out my head. Like, ain't nobody thinking about you,
Yeah,
mama. And if they are, who cares? You know what I
yeah,
mean? All I'm doing is eating. So that's what we gotta definitely focus on that. And the part in which it was stated about, people opinion on you gonna be based on what they went through.
hmm,
Always have to remember that because people then grew up in this, they'll what they see, they don't really see you. They see the actions of other people that's similar to you, and then they
hmm,
projected it on you. You know what I mean? And you might
yeah,
have had a different approach or meaning in a different way and things like that. And you can't blame them for that either. That's just how it is. So
right.
you have to definitely keep that in mind. One point that they just said that about others people's opinions, right? That's a kind of hard thing because somewhat, especially when you're going through say political opinions or trying to be worse or whatever, you kind of need other people's opinion of you to a certain extent. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be on a real personal level. It should be about what you're doing for the large and things like that, but it's still other people's opinion. So you can't just banish other people's opinion, because other people's opinions on the lodge is how you're doing as worshipful
Hmm.
master. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yep,
So,
yep,
yeah, so that's a balance thing. You just can't take it too harsh, especially nobody should be being personal with their critiques and stuff like that. Is more of what are you doing to advance and things like that. And that's when you ask for feedback and get things like that for trusted people and things. So yeah, that one's real good and it goes in different ways, definitely.
absolutely. And it's
Mhm.
not about like even to like the like banishing people's opinions. It's more of the
Yeah.
accept that they are there, don't
Hmm.
take them personally, and don't let them control
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
right,
Hmm.
like you need to be aware of them, but just
Yeah.
know that their opinions of you are based on more of them than you of
Yeah,
their.
that's the thing about of being aware of other people's opinions. Because you hear brothers talk and they be like, forget other people and you ain't got to worry about none of that. But if you're trying to do certain things, other people's opinions will be in part of that, no matter what. If you're dealing with people and you're trying to advance, other people's opinions will come into play.
100%.
Yeah, definitely.
100%. Yeah, I've seen too many guys get paralyzed though by
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
personal attacks. People want to leave the lodge or they want to leave
Mm-hmm.
organizations because they so hurt. The personal they just they just get torn down by the taking everything personal. Everything's a personal attack. Personal attack. I was like,
Yeah, definitely can't
dude,
do
like
that.
I'm like, brother, it's not about you. That
Yeah.
brother is having that brother had a hard day or he got something going on or
Yeah.
even the celebrations like.
Yeah.
They brought Jesus into the city and with
Mm-hmm.
praise and Hosanna, Hosanna, and then they crucify him,
Yeah.
not a week later. So don't get too high, don't get too low. Just try to,
Mm-hmm.
it's not an easy thing, but it's something that we got to work through.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely.
The third agreement is don't make assumptions. I like this one too. This is another
Mm-hmm.
one, right? So find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstanding, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. So, as a leader, we talk about this all the time in the lodge, in life, is the ability to communicate. Um, there's a lot of different communication styles, but the one thing is, in order to help lead and sort of articulate your vision, you got to be clear and ask questions and say what you mean what you say, and don't assume that the people who you're sharing information with actually heard what you were trying to convey. So say just because your lips are moving doesn't mean communication is happening. So
Definitely.
don't assume that they heard what you were trying to say. So one thing is you could do is check in and say, well, what did you hear? What did you hear me say? um, Especially if the master of the lodge and you have your wardens and you're trying to convey like these are the things we want to do. This is sort of my vision for it. This is what I'm hoping we can get out of it and support the lodge and the craft for. What did you hear me say? And then if they repeat back what you were trying to convey, then you've communicated. At least they understood what you were trying to communicate to a certain degree. If they give you something totally different than what you were trying to say, then that's opportunity to clear up, any misunderstandings or ambiguity there. And so, and also assuming that they understood and not checking back in with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we had past master Wood and all. He said, "Don't expect what you do not expect what you won't inspect." So I love that. I should remember
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
don't assume because you gave them an instruction that they're going off and they're doing it. Again, these men have their own lives, their own things going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you want to check in, not being a helicopter, person or a micromanager, and at the same time, you still want to make sure that you are checking in and make sure the work is getting done. And then also from an assumption standpoint, don't assume, again, going back to that, taking things personally, don't assume that somebody's not coming to the lodge or somebody's not being engaged. Don't try to make assumptions as to why they aren't doing certain things or why they are doing certain things. Like if you're curious enough, pick up the phone, ask that man, what's going on? I see you doing a lot more than you used to do. What's going on? Are you, you got new energy with the craft? Don't assume that they're, politicking for the sake of doing certain things, or don't assume that they're distant because of certain things. Like if you really care, ask the question. So then you're not making up stories in your mind about what you believe to be true versus what actually is the case. So don't make assumptions is another agreement. Is the third agreement. What do you think about that, Mark?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely love the last part in which you stated, as far as when the brother's doing more, he's actually doing good things that you check in on him, ask, like, hey, man, I see you doing more. What's going on? You know what I mean? You got it, like you said, you got new energy, new zeal. Why are you doing more than what you usually be doing? That's a good thing. We need to try to find the good more than we do the bad.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So when you see brothers doing good, yeah, harp on that too. Don't just when they're doing bad.
Yeah,
Um,
it's funny
let's
too because the
yeah.
guys,
Mhm.
brothers will be like, clout chasing, that's the one of the words, people say,
Yeah.
or you trying
Hmm.
to get a collar or those sort of things. I'm like, don't make that assumption. Like, ask that man. He might just really be feeling the vibe right now. So
He found his niche. It might be something that particularly he never knew before, and then that was his niche. So now he's dived all into it now
yeah.
that he found it. It could be
Yeah.
simply that, you know. Um, One thing that you when you was explaining about ask the people um what if they understand what you're saying, right?
Mhm.
Now we have a saying that is in the hip hop community for all and well rappers or whatever say, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
I don't know what you're saying.
I don't know what you're saying, but that's really a question. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So it's like one of those things when you ask somebody, how are you doing? And they just say, fine. Do you really want that answer?
Mhm.
Or are you just
Mhm.
saying something, right? So in this case, what you're saying, do you know what I'm saying? You're really asking for that answer. Do you
Mhm.
understand the words coming out of my mouth? Do you understand why I express this, how I express this, what I mean, where I'm going with that? And that's the feedback that you want from the people, especially as a leader, to help guide them and help guide the larger, better places.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then, like you was also saying about, if somebody's not coming around and things like that, it all comes from like open communication. Keep the lines of communication open on both sides. And that should be happening as you're going up the line. This is why you calling brothers, checking on them, getting to know them and things like that. Hopefully if you get a chance to serve many years before you get the principal officer seat, as we know, as we've seen, some people get there fast. But you could still check on brothers here and there, get to know them and things like that. So by the time you're the junior warden, when you should be the heart of the lodge during that
Mhm.
year, you continue on checking, knowing brothers and things like that. And then by then you should be, it won't be an assumption almost. You'll be like, oh, that's Brother Jones. I know he works at night. And that's Brother Gibson. I know that, he has his daughter, so he can't attend or whatever. So you'll kind of know what's going on with the lodge with that open communication between your brothers. And that'll stop the assumptions going on. And then when somebody has an assumption, you always be like, nah, that ain't how it is. Because I know this is what happened because I talk to him all the time. That's all it is. It ain't he ain't in his feelings or he mad at this person.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, he
What I mean?
might, but at least you gotta ask, like, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah,
might be in his
exactly,
feelings.
exactly. It might be, but when somebody has that assumption and you know the truth because you have that open communication and you're not trying to assume, that's what happens. And sometimes we just also from the person of being asked a question as a member of the lodge, you got to remember that we all are brothers, and brothers might want to be more open and more closer to you than you're willing to be at that time. So
Hmm.
if a brother asks you a question, don't be like offended, like, oh, you're trying to get all up in my business. You know what I mean? But you might have your own wall or your own barrier or what you call that
Yeah. Get
limitation
your
of
guards up. Yeah, you
guards
gotta,
up or whatever you might have that you want to do at that time. And it's okay. I mean, if you don't want to go
yeah.
but so far, what's so far, but knowing that that man might be asking out of love and not just nosiness.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
So the
Yeah.
assumption would be the
Yeah.
only assumption that I would say that I would encourage us to think about is assume good intent.
Yeah, that's what we should be doing. That's what we should be doing in the craft, assuming good intent. The way I word it now, that, as we divest ourselves of all metallic substances, we're supposed to divest ourselves of some of those outside mentalities and
Mm,
take on the characteristics of a Mason, within the lodge and once you become a Mason. So we will assume the good intent of another brother because
absolutely.
that's a good man and that's your brother. He wants
Yes.
nothing but love for you.
I think that assuming good intent and being just naturally curious is sort of like one of the underpinnings of the craft when we think about brotherly love and seeking truth and providing relief. It's if you come at it from a point of like, I'm just gonna be curious, not
Hmm.
nosy, but just have a natural
Yeah.
curiosity to understand not just
Hmm.
what how others are feeling, but also like information that you receive. Sometimes we take stuff as like on face value and assume that it's the right thing to do because they did it for 30 years or 100
Hmm.
years. And
It
so
also will lead to less stress in the craft when you actually you're not assuming anything, you're asking the question,
not
and
judging people.
you're not judging people because you're assuming what they're doing are for the good, for the good. So you won't have that stress that all these people trying to get at me and things like that. It won't be there.
Right.
You
Well,
won't
it goes
have
back
those.
to taking it personal.
Exactly. You won't have all those imaginary haters in your head.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. If I can't stress anything more, it's like I promise you, after I get off this call,
hmm
and Mark, you know I love you.
hmm
I'm not gonna be thinking about Mark
Yeah,
and
yeah.
too hard from
That,
now.
look, when I think about WAG, I text.
Yeah, yeah. And
That's what
that's
I'm
not a
thinking about.
negative thing. It's like, I have my own life, my own world, and so
Yeah.
do you, right? And so it's like
Exactly.
stop thinking everything is about you and making
hmm
assumptions about, this brother don't like me because he's not calling me. This brother got his own life,
hmm
you know.
hmm
So yes, do not make assumptions. Ask questions about everything. You might read something in the book, you know.
hmm
Don't make assumptions about its validity or anything like
Yeah,
that either.
definitely. With the questions, like on our consistory study class we had last Monday, we was talking about that as far as questions and things like that. But sometimes it's good to it's better to find the proper question, the proper answer.
hmm
So no, so you should, as a Mason, we should always have a question. There's
hmm
no other time you should have a question. You don't have a question as a Mason, you ain't studying, you ain't reading, you ain't doing anything. Like, what are we
hmm
doing here? If you ain't got that curiosity, like you said, so you should have some type of question. So, today's homework, find that question that's going to
Yes.
challenge you to become better.
Yes. And even as a leader too, going back to leadership is when you
Mhm.
are in that room and you're leading the craft or you're leading a committee. Um, Oftentimes the most insights come from the questions versus like the answers. And so just thinking about like how can you show up in these spaces with a good question that can
Yeah,
lead to conversation versus feeling like I'm the leader, I need to have all the answers. Now there may be
yeah.
some instances where you need to have an answer to contribute, and at other times where you kind of need to step back and ask questions to get others thinking.
Yeah, I forget the name of the podcast, and I know you listened to it, Wag, because I sent you about it the other day. I was listening to it yesterday, his leadership podcast. I'm gonna pull it up while we talking. But he mentioned,
The Craig Rousseau?
yeah, the Craig Russo, yeah,
Yeah.
that one. Yeah, I was listening to it yesterday, and he was talking to somebody young in organization, stuff like that, and he had questions for them. His questions like, how can I serve you as a better leader?
hmm
Things like that. What things are you doing with the other young people that I can help with? Things like that. Some you're thinking outside the box, and all those are going to come from those questions. So you can ask your membership questions will help get you the better answers and make you a better leader and guide the lodge the way it truly wants to be, the way the brothers wanted to be. You
Right.
know? Yeah.
Right.
hmm
Don't assume you know what's best. Ask
Yeah.
questions.
hmm
Yes.
hmm
And then the fourth agreement, the last agreement to round this out. So we talked about being impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. And then the fourth agreement is always do your best.
mm
Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best, and you will avoid self judgment, self abuse, and regret. Um, this is huge too, especially in a volunteer organization where you have your usual vocation, you have your family, you have all these things that are around you that impact your energy level, your emotional state, um, and at the same time, you made a commitment to this organization, and so no matter how you feel at that moment, come at it from a mindset of I'm gonna do my best with what I got. So if my battery is at 20%, if my battery is at 100%, um, you know, come at it from the mindset of how can I be my best version of my 20% self, or how can I be the best version of my 80% self? Our last show, and again, I have to commend you, like I was on probably like 40% on that conversation.
Yeah.
Like one, we got to keep the conversations going, we got to keep the momentum going.
hmm
And two, professionals do what they have to do even when they don't feel like doing it.
Yes.
And so, as a master mason, as a master in this craft, you
hmm
practice your craft, you do your craft, even when you don't feel like it. And so you do the best you can with what you have at that time. So as a worshipful master, it's going to be many times where you're going to be frustrated, you're going to be tired, you're going to be, just kind of done. You're like, yeah, I'm done.
Done. Yeah.
That
hmm
doesn't, that doesn't work. at the same time, you got to dig deep and say, okay, like how can I show up as my best self,
Mm-hmm.
um, even though I'm tired, even though I'm under the weather, I'm sick. Um, we kind of let this might, this kind of, we could take it different ways, but sometimes um, brothers will be under the weather and we kind of give them a pass and say, stay home, do this. We got it covered. But oftentimes, I'm not feeling good today, and so I'm not gonna come to lodge today. And you could be
Mm-hmm.
like one of the key leaders in the lodge, be like, I'm not feeling good today, so I won't come to lodge today. And we kind of give them a pass. But I guarantee you they went to work that day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying, come to lodge if you like, be spreading germs and getting everybody sick and all that sort of things, but be mindful of, how can you show up and contribute? Even if you don't show up at the lodge that day, say, brother, I can't be at the lodge today, but here are my reports. These are some of the things that I'm thinking about. How can you still show up
Exactly.
and give your best as a brother, as a leader in that space, even if you're not physically present? And so, you know, just do your best. I think it's a key leadership trait. I think it'll help others build confidence in you and trust that you are somebody that's dependable, that has, a high level of integrity, is that you're gonna show up consistently. And even if you're not, you have a flu game, you could have had a Jordan flu game, but you're still showing up as your best version. I think that definitely will lend itself to you, being perceived by others in a favorable light. Going back to others' opinions of you again.
Mm-hmm.
However they value the way that you show up. That's the way you show up and how they respond to it is on them. But at the same time, you still control how you show up. And be mindful that people are watching, people are looking. So do your best at all
Yeah.
times.
Yeah,
And know that's going
definitely.
to change. Know it's going to ebb and flow. Like, don't beat
Mm-hmm.
yourself up. Like, listen, I can't give it all today, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give my best today. And so I'm not gonna be regretful. Like, man, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Like, no, I just gave my best. I'm not gonna be beating myself up over the head. Like, man, I can't give my 100, so I'm not gonna show up. Like, no, no, no. Do your best with what you have at that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't when you are a perfectionist, sometimes you get caught up in that because you're like, oh, if I can't be perfect, then I don't want to do nothing at all. And definitely shouldn't be that. You do what you can do, what you have at that time to the best of your ability. I mean, you even might know that, all right, I have 80% in the tank. I need to give the large 40, and then I got another 40 I got to do at home. You know what I mean? So you got to balance it out. But yeah, you definitely do what you can to give what you can. But the number one question is, are you doing your best?
Yeah.
If you are truly doing your best, then you shouldn't have any regrets because that's all you can do. You can't give more than what you actually have. There is no such thing as that. If you only have 100, you can't go into debt when it comes to what you're giving as a person. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? If
Yeah.
your cup is empty, you can't go and get no. That's it. You just got to refill the cup eventually. You
Yeah.
can't
That even
just
goes
give
to
you.
charity too. Like,
Yeah.
remember we talk about
Hmm.
charity and a brother or a sister may have a issue going on and we'll pick up a charity for them.
Yeah.
And you'll see it'd be $50 you got, 50 brothers in the room and $50
Hmm.
in the pot here. I'm like, did we give our best? Did
Yeah.
we
Yeah. Yeah.
did we
Yeah.
do our
Did
best?
did we? Did we?
And
You know
maybe
what I
we
mean?
did, but
Yeah.
that's the question that you just raised. Like, are you really giving your best?
Yeah. Are you really giving your best? And once you will know that you're truly giving your best and there won't be any regrets from that. And then if everybody gave their best, I guarantee you every lodge would be a success. That's all it takes. Everybody truly doing their best. And then, I mean, doing your best also comes going back to the original, even to my lecture, when you're a master mason, the learning and developing and things like that. If you're developing more and learning more, then your best will get higher, right? So that's when you increase it. So when
Mm,
you aren't at 100 before, you start off, and when you first got raised, you got a 100%. But as our past grandmaster Gregory Smith said, 1% better. So you get 1% better the whole year. So now you're at 350, 65% better, right? So, in the new year, you ain't feeling all of that. So you can't give 100%. But now your 100% is 365%.
higher than it
But
was
yeah,
before.
it's
Yeah.
higher than it was before or whatever. So you can give a little bit more. if you continue to learn, strive, and do what you need to do. So that's the reason why we also build and improve, because you have more to give when you build more. So
Hmm.
do that. I mean, that's not alone just for Masonry, is with your family and all things like that. That's the reason why we're learning and growing. And it actually makes you a better person, better man. It actually keeps you younger. These things that we're talking about for when I'm studying and learning, asking questions, being curious, keeping them somewhat of a mindset of a child. That
Hmm.
curiosity part, that's what helps keeps you young. And the
Hmm.
stuff that we do when we get older, where we don't want to change, we become all inflexible, that's actually our aging us and making us easier to break.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So you have to keep those things in mind. So don't be that past master that don't want to change. You have to learn how to be flexible and being curious, and that alone it'll keep you young. And along with the reason why we study and things like that, do things from the heart, all that stuff is actually helping us better as men in our main, our brains and things like that. So just keep those things in mind, definitely, and always do your best, bro. Always.
Yeah. Yeah. You talked about that stiffness, and
Mhm.
I got rose bushes in my backyard that I'm probably gonna cut down soon, but
You
you
got
always
stuck
could
too many
tell,
times?
huh?
You got stuck too many times with
Oh
thorn?
my gosh, yeah. But the thing is, like, you can tell where one of the vines or the branches is about to break or it's the weakest because it's like the stiffest
Mm,
versus like the
mm.
ones that are really flexible and green and flexible, they don't break as easy.
Yeah.
And even like the bushes, you could tell like an old
What's
bush
that?
is dying.
Fortitude, and that's having fortitude.
Yeah.
One of our
So you
definitely.
can pull out, you go the stiffest bush in the backyard that's like
Mm,
super stiff. You can't really, it's not flexible at all. That thing usually snaps the easiest out of
mm,
all of them
mm,
versus the one
mm,
that is a little more pliable, has some flexibility to it.
mm,
Might have to cut it down. But yeah, that's 100% like being stiff and rigid and inflexible definitely
mm.
leads you to breaking and aging.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't tend to think about those things, but they all have connections. So
Yes.
please
Yes.
just everybody, let's stay curious so we can advance ourselves in the craft. Let's remain flexible so that we can give and take and receive and all that, and be able to, when somebody comes in, you could bend a little bit this way and bend a little bit that way.
Mhm.
We definitely don't want the laws to break.
No, no. That's
you
the
know
last thing we want. Last thing we want. Yeah. So I mean, this is all good things that I wish I would have known, years and years ago. And I'm
hmm
still working on these agreements today,
hmm
in terms of being impeccable with my words, always slipping up there and gotta always course correct like that. Did I use my best words there for myself or somebody else?
hmm
Not taking things personally, not making assumptions, and then doing your best. So those four agreements, great reminder around leadership, personal development, brothers in the craft, using those working tools to help you just become a better person, and using these four agreements as a way to use those tools and help guide your development for sure.
um we got to figure out where exactly to put this book thing at. We're gonna put it in the end, but we still want to. So, a book on leadership. What book do you have on leadership for this week, whether Masonic or anything to that nature? One of your favorite books.
Let's see here. Books on leadership. I got my library behind me here.
Yeah. I just put mine back on the shelf. I can go get my one. I know
Yeah.
where it's at real quick. I'm gonna go get mine real quick. Hold on.
Yes, interesting that the books that we have in the audio books.
I'm back when they take that long.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
I mean,
all right.
I'm more of a podcast guy
Okay.
and on leadership with like the John Maxwell's and the Craig Rousseau's and those
hmm
those guys. But then we have books like the leadership challenge by Kuzer and Poisner. This is one of the books that
Okay.
I got when I was
Oh yeah.
at school, the
hmm
leadership challenge. That's a book that I've kept in the library for over 20 years and kind of refer back
hmm
to it every now and then. But
Okay.
a lot of stuff is kind of learning through practice.
I got you. All right. This is one of my favorite Masonic leadership books. Masonic leadership, Lifeline Leadership. by Alan Roberts. It's published by the Masonic Service Association of the United States of America. So
Mm,
you could pick that up. It's real good. It covers a whole bunch of different things within
yeah.
leadership within the lodge. It has questions and things like that. So, it's like a workbook to an extent, and it also has other books it recommends and things like that. It has nice little illustrations uh, that shows things to do and things like that, goal orientated. And I love this book. It's the first one, if nobody ever seen this before. Nice little talking about the ritual.
Mm,
The ritual of the craft is important. Without it, there would be no Freemasonry as we know it. The ritual alone, however, is of little value if it remains a monument of stagnation. Armed with goals, plans, and other principles of good leadership or management, it can be a potent force
mm,
of good throughout the world. The choice is yours. That's what we talked about being stiff. So the person with the bow on it would be the stiff guy, right?
mm,
So, he took his bow off, he a little more flexible, he armed with some more of the things, and now he can lead the lodge and
mm.
into a better way of looking at things. So yeah, this
I
is
love that.
definitely one of my best books.
What that's speaking of ritual too, like if I had to be 100% honest with you, and this may seem cheesy,
Mhm.
but my favorite one of my favorite leadership books is the book of Proverbs.
Okay, cool,
It's
cool. Ain't nothing
literally,
wrong with that. It's that Proverbs is deep. There's a lot in there.
yeah, yeah, 31 chapters, and
Mhm.
each one of those chapters, man, it's just like because we talk about self leadership often here, and so
Mhm.
like the things in which that book teaches you about just like life and leadership and self development and self awareness and how to engage with people,
Mhm.
all those things. Like read the book of Proverbs, one chapter a day for a month, and do that every quarter. You'd
Yeah.
probably be a better leader at the end of the year.
I
If
mean,
you
they
do that.
definitely have the value. They took that book and extracted it where they just got a book of Psalms and Proverbs alone. So that
Mm,
tells you that the wisdom that it has is worth it. So you could
yeah,
definitely check that out. Definitely.
definitely. All right,
Mhm.
cool. So yeah, like, subscribe to the channel, share this episode with anyone who you think may receive value from it. Anything else, Mark, before we wrap up?
No, I want to say thank you for everybody who have tuned in during all this time that we have been podcasting. We truly appreciate you and are grateful for you. And our style may be a little different than anybody else's because it's more conversational. We ain't trying to be the most professional and things like that. We trying to get this information out to the brothers, the sisters, and to the people, and so that they can grow and hopefully they get something from it. And that's all we wish. That's all, And we are
Hmm.
truly grateful and thank you for each and every one of you. And
Yeah.
everybody that been guests on the show. Thank you for taking the time with us and all the ones in the future. We thank you for that. You're helping us
Yes.
grow individually as men in the craft. We hope that this show have definitely made the craft just 1% better.
That's
Yeah,
it. Hopefully over time, the
yeah,
accumulation, multiple
yeah,
1%
exactly,
every time you
exactly.
hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I echo you in terms of just being thankful for the support from the viewership, support from the comments that we get, support from the brothers, support from our guests. It's just been a beautiful journey so far, and we haven't even been doing this for a year yet. So it's just
Yeah,
like imagine
exactly,
um,
exactly.
the conversations and just the growth and the development, and again, just trying to push the craft forward, trying to push leadership forward, one step at
I'm
a time.
definitely curious if any sisters. I don't really hear too much for them. So if any sisters are tuning in, check in. Let's
Yeah,
hear from you. You know what I mean? Let's see some comments and things like that. And we're open for sisters to come on the show too. So if you have any people that you recommend, let us know.
yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
unless they are signing in, unless the brothers are signing in from their female account, we do have like
Okay.
a small percentage. I looked at some
Mhm.
of the analytics. We do have a small
Okay.
percentage of women
Okay.
who are viewing the show. So
Mhm.
feel free to share this information with ladies in your life too. I mean, it's
Mhm.
gonna be 99% of the guests will be men on here, but at the same
Yeah.
time, the information is
Mhm.
the information.
Exactly. It's just
And
organization. Organization is organization. Whether
mhm,
it's, a lodge, a chapter, your family, that's still somewhat of an organization. So there's things that carry over and translate in between, you know?
yeah. Yeah. Like, subscribe, share the content. We appreciate you all for sure. Anything else, Mark?
Nah, that's it.
All right, cool. Like we always say, the world needs leaders, and leadership starts with your ability to lead yourself. We hope and pray that the information that you receive today and through our show will help you become a better person, a better leader in the craft or outside the craft if you're not in the craft or the order. And so until the next time, again, happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate Thanksgiving, happy holiday season. Until the next time, God bless.